Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're grabbing a magnifying glass and taking a really close look at the anatomy of a ruling. Specifically, we're going to unpack this absolutely fascinating legal journey known as Case CCT 14/05, or Marius van Vuuren versus the state. Cases like this one are just incredible because they don't just teach us about the law on paper, right? They show us exactly how the gears of the justice system actually turn in real life. We are going to track a dispute that started all the way down in a local everyday magistrate's court and climbed all the way up to the awe-inspiring halls of the Constitutional Court of South Africa. It's basically a masterclass on how our justice system is put together and, honestly, more importantly, where its strict boundaries lie. So, before we get into the nitty-gritty of Mr. Van Vuuren's battle, I want you to think about this central question. Can the highest court in the land fix any mistake made by a lower court? It's a super common myth, isn't it? We watch all these legal dramas on TV, we read the thrillers, and we just kind of assume that if you have the money and the sheer stubbornness to keep appealing a bad decision, well, the highest court will eventually swoop in, look at all the evidence again, and just fix every single wrong. We view them as these ultimate, all-powerful fixers. But actually, scratch that. The reality of judicial power is completely different. As you're going to see throughout this explainer, the highest courts are actually bound by incredibly strict, very specific rules. Okay, let's dive right into this. Part 1, the unpaid maintenance case. Now, massive precedent-setting legal battles don't usually start in gleaming skyscrapers with giant teams of corporate lawyers. They almost always start with everyday, ground-level human issues. Take Marius van Vuuren. He found himself at the Nigel Magistrates Court, just a regular local lower court. And the issue? Proceedings in the maintenance court. Van Vuuren was ultimately sentenced not once, not twice, but 3 separate times for failing to pay child maintenance for his 2 minor children. It's a highly emotionally charged, really relatable scenario. It perfectly sets up that classic David versus the system narrative, where an everyday citizen feels they've been totally wronged by a local magistrate's factual findings and decides, you know what, I'm not just going to accept this, I'm going to fight back. Moving on to part 2, journey through the courts. So Van Vuuren attempted to climb the judicial ladder, but man, he faced roadblocks at literally every single turn. Step 1, he's convicted at the magistrate's court. Unhappy with how they saw the facts, he seeks leave to appeal to the high court in step 2. But the high court takes a look and just dismisses his application. Still not throwing in the towel, he moves to step 3, taking his fight all the way to the Supreme Court of Appeal, and rejected again. Finally, completely out of standard appellate options, his relentless fight lands on the desk of the highest authority possible on April 6, 2005, the Constitutional Court. He faced this long, multi-year chronological chain of outright rejections, but he actually made it to the absolute top of the legal pyramid. Which brings us to Section 3, breaking the procedural rules. Now, what's really interesting about this part is you would logically think an application to the highest court in the land would be absolutely flawless, right? But procedurally speaking, it was a total mess. First off, it flat out did not comply with the court's standard rules of submission. Second, there was literally no specific relief identified, meaning Van Vuuren didn't even clearly tell the Constitutional Court exactly what legal remedy he wanted them to give him. And perhaps most glaringly of all, there was no service of the application upon interested parties. He essentially skipped the totally basic step of officially notifying the other side, like the state prosecution, that he was even taking this to the Constitutional Court. It was a deeply flawed appeal before the judges even got past the title page. Based on those massive procedural failures, you'd probably expect the Constitutional Court to just throw the whole case out immediately and lock the door, right? But listen to this incredible quote taken directly from the official judgment. We are prepared to overlook these defects for the purposes of this judgment. Talk about a major plot twist. The court shows extreme leniency here. They basically say, okay, we aren't going to dismiss you on a mere technicality or some bad paperwork. We are actually going to look at the core of your complaint. And this creates this amazing moment of suspense, right? Because if the highest court is being this accommodating, could Van Vuuren actually pull off a victory here? Let's look at Section 4, the jurisdiction roadblock. So the judge's being lenient on his paperwork was definitely a huge lucky break. But then Van Vuuren slammed hard into an insurmountable barrier that's literally hardwired into the legal system: jurisdiction. As we know, courts don't just have infinite magical power to judge anything and everything under the sun. Their hands are strictly tied by their specific jurisdiction. Think of it as the rules of the game for judges. If a court doesn't have jurisdiction over your specific type of issue, they literally cannot help you. It doesn't matter how sympathetic they might be to your cause, they just can't do it. So, what exactly is the jurisdiction of the Constitutional Court? Well, this quote, pulled directly from Section 167, subsection 3 of the South African Constitution, answers that question perfectly. It says, the Constitutional Court may decide only constitutional matters and issues connected with decisions on constitutional matters. I really want you to focus on that word only. It is doing incredibly heavy lifting here. It means the court is highly, highly specialized. It's not some general complaints department for everyone who lost a case. It exists solely to interpret and protect the Constitution.
Section 5. Facts versus the Constitution.
And this brilliantly illustrates the fatal mismatch between Van Vuuren's argument and the court's actual power. On one side, look at his complaint. He's telling the Constitutional Court that the local Nigel magistrate simply ignored certain facts or made incorrect factual findings about his unpaid child maintenance. He's basically arguing about the nitty-gritty details of what actually happened. But on the other side, we have the court's absolute, non-negotiable requirement. The case must raise a specific constitutional complaint. Van Vuuren's application didn't mention constitutional rights being violated at all. He just said the magistrate got the facts wrong. And here's the bottom line. A factual dispute is not a constitutional dispute. To back this up, the justices cited a very well-established precedent, S. v. Buzak, stating, a complaint that a criminal court has erred on the facts does not, on its own, constitute a constitutional matter. And honestly, this makes perfect logical sense when you step back and think about it. If getting a fact wrong in a local court automatically triggered a full-blown constitutional crisis, the highest court would be flooded with literally millions of minor disputes every single day. They are an apex court, they're not a fact-checking agency for local magistrates. Finally, Section 6, the final verdict. So, after this massive multi-year journey, a real heavyweight bench, including Chief Justice Chaskelson, Deputy Chief Justice Longa, and 8 other incredibly esteemed justices, delivered a swift final blow. The order simply reads, application dismissed. Because he only complained about factual errors and absolutely did not raise a constitutional issue, the Constitutional Court legally had no jurisdiction to entertain the application. They couldn't help him, even if they wanted to. The ultimate takeaway from this explainer isn't just about the specifics of some unpaid maintenance case. It's a really powerful lesson about the strict structural limits of judicial power. A court, even the absolute highest court in the land, can only act within the rigid boundaries drawn for it by the law. So, I'll leave you with this to chew on. If a lower court errs on the facts but the highest court cannot intervene because it's not a constitutional matter, where exactly do the limits of justice and jurisdiction meet? It's a necessary, highly structured, yet sometimes incredibly frustrating reality of our legal system. Not every mistake can be escalated all the way to the top. Sometimes, the end of the road just comes much sooner than we'd like. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this structured look at the law gives you a completely new, sharpened perspective the very next time you hear about some controversial case fighting its way to the highest court. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.